The examination that argues religion is politics. I'm starting to understand the truth behind the old cliché that says, never argue religion and politics. Clichés are clichés after all, because there is an element of truth to them. In this case, though, that element of truth is flawed because it seems to be saying, in effect, everyone is right, so how can you win an argument with someone who is right? The undeniable truth, though, is that there are things that are true and things that are not true, or lies. Of course, what I say about all of this political and religion stuff is truth. Laughs. I say that tongue-in-cheek just to illustrate my point. The aforementioned idea almost makes me want to just shut up about religion and politics, but I say almost because my soul says to me, don't do it. I'm even more bolstered in this idea by my finally getting around to watching the TV miniseries entitled AD, The Bible Continues. A miniseries which pretty faithfully chronicles the early church, portrayed from the New Testament's the Book of Acts. This show so beautifully illustrates the intimate relationship that has always existed between what we have come to call religion and what we have come to call politics. This is a fact or issue that modern Americans have been blessed, or is it cursed, to not have to deal with much at all until a time coming very soon. I say all of that to say that what really perplexes a truth seeker is the obvious rampant existence of a practice quote-unquote religion to live an unexamined life in an unexamined world. Where did this religion come from? And why is it such a popular religion? Why such a blind trust and faith in this establishment religion? With just the most rudimentary examination on almost any subject, if a person would just put aside the pre-programmed established line of what they are taught to be true and merely examine it with new, unbiased eyes, they very well might come to a conclusion that, in this instance, what they are taught as truth really isn't. Ultimately, they could ask themselves, oh, what else am I being lied to about? Of course, many seem afraid to examine and embrace truth, and in effect, that becomes their working religion. Could this idea be any more potently illustrated than when Pilate asked Jesus, "Truth, what is truth?" Religion and politics are really, in essence, very close to being the same things. Religion being a man's quest for truth, and politics being the practical application of how that man wants to be able to live out his life under his perception of truth. I could go on to illustrate and explain the different religious ideologies and their equivalent or corresponding political ideology, but to be brief, I won't. But here are some other questions well worth asking or examining. Are what we have come to call religion and politics both tools used to control us by legislating our morality and our safety? Is that always a good thing? Is it always a bad thing? Are my definitions of both words that I supplied even correct definitions of those words? It comes down to what we want to believe as truth. It ultimately is really about the state of our hearts. See my article or video entitled "The Mad Scientist Who Bisects Our Hearts," especially for someone who thinks that science proves this kind of idea as wrong. It's a noble thing to have a political belief formed by what your examined perception of truth is. For example, if your examination has led you to the conclusion that there is no God, and that your God should be the state, and you are willing to hand over your own free will to the state, an idea abhorrent to Christians and patriots, then supporting the likes of a Clinton or a Bernie Sanders or any other godless communist would make perfect sense. After all, a true reckoning of what their platform is would in fact reveal that point to them. But that concept seems especially unexamined. I find it interesting, however, that many avowed atheists declare that the reason they can't or won't believe in a biblical God is because they can't believe in a God who says, in essence, love me or else. But any truthful examination of the Bible would reveal to them that there is no greater champion for our free will as men than the God of the Bible. This God-ordained freedom through justice is what our free country was founded upon. After all, even God wouldn't want someone to love him because of a gun to their head. If that, a gun to the head, absent of liberty and justice, is what a person believes the Bible is saying, I suggest that they read it again, or perhaps for the first time. There seems another major political and religion belief system being practiced heavily that seems to say, I am all right with the status quo as long as I can keep getting mine. Is this a form of hedonism? This profession of, I'll go with the safe, crony, capitalist, fascistic status quo. so I can keep on feeling secure. This precarious feeling of security, even without justice, that even many professing Christians seem to embrace over what their instruction manual, the Bible, tells them to follow. I also find this very concerning. See my writing entitled "A Toast to Those Just Doing Their Jobs." The well-examined political and religious person, I am afraid, seems to be somewhat of a rare bird, and unfortunately I think our future as mankind seems to be left in the hands, or is it the unexamined minds, of a new kind of political and religious creature that is, as that pseudo-secure status quo continues, giving himself over to another kind of bird, a rising phoenix. After all, that is what lets the evil ones, or powers that be and their politicians, practice their own loveless, social justice-powered, anti-justice embracing, Luciferian religion on all of us. But as I am apt to notice of late, we are on the dawning of a great awakening to all of these kinds of things. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth marches on.